Okay, let's give Eric and YhaliS a round of applause.
Alright, hello everyone. My name is YhaliS.
Hello, and my name is EricS.
And today we're going to be pitching Root Society. We want you guys to explore our world from the lens of a potential group of producers who are hoping to turn this into a feature film. Our story goes over the genre of dystopia, and the main theme is influence and how powerful voices can affect our day-to-day lives for better or worse.
And our logline is: when a young boy discovers a sapling amidst a desolate earth, he must face his predecessors to uncover an ancient past.
So, to give you guys some context, the story takes place in Greece in the year 4056 VNE, which stands for Vanguard New Era, which we'll explain in a bit. Due to overpopulation, majority of Earth's population has died out, with only around 1% remaining. All of its environments have died out. The oceans have evaporated. There's no trees, no shrubbery. Oxygen is no longer naturally produced. Society is controlled by an organization called the Vanguard, and their other members of society are known as dwellers, who live rather miserable and impoverished lives.
So I'm going to go over more about the Vanguard Enterprise. Basically, in the Common Era, about like 3000 CE, the merit-based society that we're in kept moving forward, and scientists took over. They gathered all the money and kind of created like an oligarchical society. And this was at a time when climate change was at a height. Earth was super dry and desolate. So they kind of had the necessary power and strength and technology to take over the whole world. So they created, they're kind of the top 1%. They're the upper echelon of society, and they took over the whole Earth, and they are kind of controlling all of the dwellers, which is everyone else on Earth. They provide them with oxygen, with food, all the stuff they need. But the only reason why they do that is because the dwellers mine and do manual labor that they need to keep advancing the technology. These scientists have advanced technology to the point where they've become immortal. So there's no new Vanguard that are coming up and dying and new being born. But they've kind of found out a way to become immortal. Their bodies are like in pods, like their consciousness, and then their consciousness is in other beings that are kind of moving around and thinking for them.
And the other side of the story is the dwellers, who make up the most of Earth survivors. They live in large encampments that are based over what used to be oceans that have since evaporated. In our story, it's also in seas. Our story takes place or starts in what was once the Mediterranean Sea, I believe, and has since evaporated. The dwellers are forced to do manual labor known as core mining, where they harvest what's remaining of Earth's resources, which is barely any, and they're given hardly any food, water, even oxygen. Oxygen is given to them in pods, and it's only given to them if they work. So they're pretty much left with no other option than to do as they're told.
So, this is our main character, Lucas. He is the son of Somos Atomos, who is part of the Vanguard Enterprise. He's thousands of years old, and YhaliS will touch on that in a bit. But he lives a very monotonous and impoverished life. He's running on the little and basic resources that the Vanguard provides for him and the rest of the dwellers. But since he knows that he has a connection to the Vanguard, he kind of has hope for a better life.
Now our main antagonist, his name is Somos Kripos Atomos. He is a prominent member of the Vanguard and is thousands of years old. He's endured and experienced all the changes that have occurred on Earth. because as Eric mentioned, the Vanguard have stayed consistent in all its members. So over the thousands of years he's been alive, he's made countless children with dwellers, including Lucas. Lucas is one of many. And being alive for so long has kind of made him bitter and emotionally disconnected from his reality, because once you make it past a certain point, it's not so clear what he's like living for. It's just been a continuous life of thousands of years of the same thing.
All right, that brings us to our story, Act 1. So Lucas is out outside of the encampment, core mining for energy for the Vanguard, and as he's core mining, he stumbles upon a living sapling, not a dead one, a living one, and he has no idea what this is. It's been thousands of years since the Earth has had any life, so he is confused as to what it is. So he brings it to his mother, who is made the baby with Somos, so she knows about the connection to the Vanguard, as does he, and she suggests that he brings it to his father that he's never met at the big Capitol Vanguard building. It's quite a bit away. It's about a 30-day walk. So he decides that he wants to know what this is, so he heads out for the Capitol, and he rations. He picks out the appropriate amount of food, oxygen that he'll need. So he kind of fasts a bit so he has more food for the journey. And he heads out to the Capitol to find out what this little sapling is all about.
So partway through his journey, in the beginning of Act 2, Lucas realizes that the food and oxygen specifically that he rationed wasn't going to be enough for his travel. So he notices a supply rover, which is what the Vanguard used to transport resources, and he hijacks it and pretty much uses it to shorten his travel time. When he makes it to the Capitol and meets the Vanguard, he's immediately treated with hostility to his surprise. And he begins to realize that they're not really interested in his being there, and they hardly acknowledge his existence. He slowly starts to understand that the reason why life is this bad is because of them, and he loses his respect for them. But things take a turn after he reveals the sapling, as it gets immediately confiscated, and they throw Lucas in a little prison deep behind the walls of the Capitol, and he's threatened with death for bringing the sapling.
So that begs the big question. Will Lucas succumb to his fate deep inside the prison walls? Or will he try to escape and find the answer to his questions about the sapling and life as he knows it?
So, reflection. What is the relevance of this story to us? Well, in truth, us as humans, as a society, have a lot of very similar destructive habits to the Vanguard. We drive cars and use non-sustainable fuel sources, and I'm sure you guys can think of many others, but a reality where Earth is no longer sustainable isn't totally a fairy tale, and it might not be too far away. We need to make sure that we're under the right power and influence, because our consequences will eventually catch up to us, so we need leaders who are willing to take the right steps as a society. And yeah.
So for personal connection for our essays, sorry for this explicit image on screen, but I wrote my my essay about Kanye West and how he's been making anti-Semitic comments on the internet and in the media, and since he's such a big part of pop culture, how it's affected society and anti-Semitism just in pop culture and in general. And this connects to our story because the Vanguard has super huge influence on society. They're kind of the end-all be-all of if they say something, then it goes. So it was kind of like Kanye West has a lot of power and say over what people can think and do in modern day society, kind of like the Vanguard.
And then for my essay, I chose to write about Twitter and the negative influence of misinformation. The reason why I chose to write about Twitter is because social media has a growing influence in our day-to-day lives. And while people might see it as meaningless, the discourse that occurs in the digital world has a very real-world effect. We can see that a lot, especially with politics. So for that reason, social media is very much influential in our lives. So it's important that when we're processing this information, we're able to receive truthful information. And because you don't want to, people shouldn't be misled, and we want to be able to make informed decisions and make good opinions. And this is kind of similar to root society, because the vanguard pulls the wool over the eyes of the dwellers when it comes to Earth's history, and they kind of force them to believe that reality has always been this way, when in reality they made it that way. So that kind of deceptive behavior is kind of what overlaps with my essay. The mouse is dead, so I can't scroll.
Sorry about that. That was my bad. You have more slides?
One more.
One more.
It's the most
It's just the
important.
question slide.
It's the most important.
It's the
But
questions.
it's a very key part of our presentation.
Sorry. And just say any questions. Sorry.
Any questions?
I lost it.
Fiona?
Were you inspired by the Lorax?
The Lorax was it was the Lorax and Wally that had like the biggest inspirations. Miles?
So like they took the sapling, but why did they take the sapling? Like what did they say to him? Like elaborate a little more on what happened
Sure.
after they took the sapling.
So pretty much when he reaches the capital, he has like a conversation with them just about like his presence, and when he introduces the sapling, the vanguard kind of acts like, at first they're taken back by the fact that a sapling can even exist in their the environment that they've created, because for thousands of years they haven't seen anything of that sort. But the reason why they take it away is because if there are signs that life could come back to Earth, then that means that society could become sustainable again. And people are able to the dwellers are able to start taking care of themselves, then the vanguard holds no power over them.
So does the vanguard give them the oxygen
Yeah.
and stuff that they used to
They
live?
give them the oxygen and the water and all the basic needs of survival.
Yeah, and the way they get that is they have to do a certain amount of manual labor for the vanguard. So if oxygen is provided naturally, and if they can get all these resources by themselves again, the vanguard is scared that they won't be having all that power and getting all that.
So the vanguard doesn't have their own supply of saplings.
No.
Oh, here's.
That earlier image where Lucas has those blue orbs as eyes, was that protective eyewear in the harsh environment, or?
We kind of so we used AI, if you couldn't tell, to generate a lot of our art. So we decided to leave kind of a bit of it to be up for interpretation. I think that's a really good interpretation of it. That they all wear gas masks and eye covers, and in the first slide that we had, which was a composited picture, he was wearing a gas mask and everything. So I guess that it would play into the fact that society, just the environment isn't really tolerable, normal.
Last question from Nicholas.
Yeah, so if all the water evaporated, where does the vanguard get their water?
They use science to create the oxygen and water. So it's they just I imagine they probably fuse it, the chemicals needed.
Okay, let's give